Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Running the Table, the podcast where Tim, Noel, and I run through all things in the world of sports. And today we're just going to get right into it. Our last episode, we did an NFL mock draft. So in the same vein, we are going to break down the quarterbacks in this upcoming NFL draft because there are a lot of good ones, and there's going to be a lot of controversy here because we each have our own opinions about the quarterbacks, some good, some bad, but we know that there are going to be differing opinions here. Now we're going to look at the five main quarterbacks being Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones. And we might even get into some of the minor quarterbacks if we have some time at the end. So you guys just want to get right into it?
Let's run it.
All right, let's run this table. So the first quarterback, clearly the best quarterback in the draft available, Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. He is the consensus first overall pick. And quite frankly, he's the best quarterback prospect we've seen since Andrew Luck. He is the can't miss kid. He's going to be drafted by Jacksonville. And there's very little to no flaws in his game. Now, at the collegiate level, that is. How that's going to translate over the NFL, yet to be seen. Because nobody's really ever a sure thing, but Trevor Lawrence is about the closest thing to a sure thing as we have here.
Yeah, I mean, as you talked about, he's got everything across the table that you can want out of a prospect coming into the draft, and I mean, it shows that's why he's the consensus number one overall pick because he's shown he's got the size, he's got the arm strength, the accuracy, the ability to take off and run when he needs to. He's really got it all. So I mean, it's really no brainer. Why he's a lock for the number one overall pick, and he pretty much has been since he got into college. So we've been known that he was going number one.
Yeah, it's really hard to actually pinpoint an accuracy in Lawrence's game. I've seen a few concerns with his footwork and consistency in that, but in reality, I mean, you look at the plays that he makes in these high pressure situations on the big stage, winning the national championship in his first year in college. Just an amazing player, really. I mean, he's got accuracy on all three levels, and with his frame being as fast and elusive as he is, he's just a great addition for any team.
Yeah, he shows some pretty scary athleticism for his size because he doesn't necessarily look like the most athletic guy.
He's a big dude. Trevor Lawrence is a big dude, and the fact that he's a dual threat, like he has exceptional accuracy with his arm. He can make all the throws. His consistency, it's like, I guess if there's a knock on him, he's like not as consistent as perfect. But then again, all quarterbacks make mistakes.
Exactly. That's just based on comparing him to literal perfection.
Exactly. And you can't really do that. But this guy is incredibly athletic. He can make plays with his feet. He can make plays out of the pocket. And I think he's going to be a really, really good quarterback in this league. And that's why he's at the top of my quarterback board, and I'm guessing all of yours as well.
It's a no-brainer. I mean, he kind of has to be. The one thing that I think is an interesting conversation, and it'll be interesting to watch once he gets in the league, is what type of impact will he have off rip? Because there's a lot of these guys that have the talent to work into being really good starting quarterbacks, but some of those, what really makes the difference in a lot of these prospects is those guys that can make the difference from day one and then keep that consistency. Because you also see a lot of guys that come into the league, shine in their rookie year, and then they fade into the background a little bit as other guys come and go, and they lose that magic touch that they had as a rookie. So it'll be interesting to see.
But I mean, you can also see the opposite thing happen where they have a rough rookie year and then they learn the system, they learn how to be a pro, they learn how to be an NFL quarterback, and they turn around and have an exceptional career.
Look what's happened thus far with Josh Allen.
Example A is Peyton Manning in that. Set the rookie record for interceptions in a single season, and he's a top 3 quarterback in the history of the game. So, but we'll see how Trevor Lawrence pans out. Noel, you got something?
I think it's really interesting how Urban Meyer obviously has gone to the Jags to be their head coach now. Someone who obviously knows a lot about Trevor Lawrence after seeing him in the postseason in college. I don't really think that there's enough in Jacksonville right now to really show what Trevor Lawrence is capable of. But then again, I mean, we've seen people succeed in not so great situations. I just kind of think that this could be a very similar situation to Joe Burrow from last year. Obviously, Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. I don't think that he's as good as Trevor Lawrence. I think his arm is a lot weaker, and he's got some stuff to work on. But the way that I see it playing out is more like the Peyton Manning situation where he's got to have some time, get used to everything. He's not going to have a completely star-studded cast like he did at Clemson. So, but obviously he's a great quarterback. Definitely deserves to go first overall.
Yeah. So moving on to the next quarterback on my board at number 2, Zach Wilson out of BYU. He is projected on many draft boards to go second overall after Lawrence to the Jets. That's where I have him. And the thing about Zach Wilson is that I've seen is some people think he's going to be an absolute stud, and some people think that he's going to be an absolute train wreck. And I can see both, but I think he's going to be a solid NFL starter if he can figure it out. Of course, that's the asterisk for most quarterbacks, like if they can figure it out, because that's obviously the first step. But Zach Wilson has a really quick release. He can make throws at all levels, short, medium, deep. He throws quality precision passes. He has really good footwork, and he's just a pure passer. Like the one knock on him that I found is he needs to work through his progressions just a tad bit faster. But then again, that's just like with adjustment, and that comes with time. So I feel like given if everything goes right in the Saleh LaFleur offense that the Jets have, I feel like Wilson can flourish.
One thing I really, really liked about Zach Wilson's tape was, like you had mentioned, he has great footwork, is the fact that he can make these great throws basically from, I wouldn't say any position, but from a lot of positions where
Well, you're a big footwork guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I like it. I think
His feet.
I mean, it's taking what? It's taking improvising.
Nothing. Moving on. More on Zach Wilson.
Because you're not always going to be in a situation where you can have your 2 feet on the ground. And I've seen Zach Wilson make plenty of great throws when he's not in exactly the most opportune stance.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point there with his throws on the run. You saw that one viral video from his pro day where he just makes an absolutely incredible throw, back shoulder, moving left, not on flat feet. And that's going to be big for him going into the pros, because one of the knocks that I've seen on him is at the college level, he had an exceptional offensive line. So he didn't really get pressured a whole lot. So he was able to make a lot of those throws relatively calm. Drew, like you said, go through his progressions, see all his options. Depending on the Jets, certainly don't have what I would consider to be a bad offensive line. They've been working on trying to
get a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. But they've been working on trying to boost it a little bit.
I mean, you had the Jets taking an offensive lineman in our mock draft after Wilson. If you haven't,
and I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be crucial for him, is whether or not he can maintain that consistency with throwing on the run, because he's not going to be able to get that kind of protection like he did at BYU. They didn't have fantastic opponents, and he had a really good offensive line, so he was able to make throws in pretty calm situations. But with the guys that are going to be coming at him in his division, as well as just in the entirety of the league, he's gonna have to make throws quickly, and he's gonna have to improvise. So I think he steps up to the challenge pretty well, but it's gonna be interesting to see how that aspect of his game translates into the pros.
So the thing that I want to get into is, while doing research, I saw an interesting take. Chris Sims, who is an analyst for, I believe, NBC, he has some interesting takes over quarterbacks. He was a former NFL quarterback himself. His dad is Phil Sims. But he had a take where he actually has Zach Wilson at number 1 on his quarterback board, ahead of Trevor Lawrence. And I just I'm gonna read some quotes from what he said, and then I want Tim and Noel, I want your takes on this, because it's certainly interesting. So Chris Sims, this is some quotes from him. He said that he thinks that Zach Wilson has Mahomes or Rodgers-ish type qualities about his game, and that he has that magician-like quality, and also that Zach Wilson fits into more systems and is more NFL drop back pass game ready than Trevor Lawrence is at this point in his career. Those are like the two major quotes that I had from Chris Sims, but this is certainly interesting. Noel, what's your take on this?
So here's the thing, right? He plays for BYU. Not always going to have the best competition around. Obviously, he still played good. I mean, what is he going to do? Not play good. But also, he really only had one standout season in his college career. It took a little bit for him to get into his rhythm. I mean, I don't know. Like, he's not mobile. I would say that he's elusive, but I wouldn't consider him a real dual threat quarterback. Like, he's definitely shifty. But I don't think that he, as of right now, from what I can see, shows any signs of being better than Trevor Lawrence. And I'm not 100% sure what I see with like the Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes comparisons, because another thing I noticed about Zach Wilson is he underthrows a lot. He underthrows a lot of balls, which is something he's obviously going to have to work on. But I don't know. I'm not even 100% sold that he's the second best quarterback in this class, if I'm being honest with you.
I mean, that's certainly an interesting take on its own, but given some of the takes by Chris Sims, I mean, I can certainly see where he's coming from. And one thing, Noel, to kind of counter your argument a little bit about his experience and his one breakout season for BYU. I mean, to be completely honest, look at the way that Joe Burrow's college career kind of sort of progressed. He had a pretty decent season the year before his breakout season at LSU, but that one season is what put him on the map and solidified him as that number one pick. And he's proven that despite his situation in Cincy, which God is abysmal, that he's been able to prove himself as the real deal as well. So I'm not ready to count Zach Wilson out yet, just because of the fact that he's only had one season of prominence. But the things that do concern me are a little bit more of his lack of experience compared to Trevor Lawrence. One of the things I like about Lawrence is the fact that not only has he had really solid performances, but he's done it year in and year out. And that's one of the things that I like. I see him as more of like a veteran quarterback presence as a rookie, not necessarily veteran for the NFL, but veteran for a prospect coming out of college. He's been in big time games year in and year out, and he's performed on pretty much all stages. So I'm not ready to put Zach Wilson above Trevor Lawrence, but I certainly do in my mind view him as the pretty solid number 2 quarterback in this class. And I do get where he talks about the Mahomes and Rodgers sort of magician-esque, because he does make some.
I understand that too, because like what we said previously is that he does make all the throws at all the levels, and he can make some throws from like off balance, fading away when he's not exactly planted. But I pretty much agree with you. I'm more so with Tim, where I would not rank him above Lawrence, but I think he is definitely the solid number 2 quarterback in this draft. Now, I think we have to move on to probably the most polarizing, or if one of the most polarizing quarterbacks in this draft. The guy from Ohio State, Justin Fields. Now, in my mock draft, I have Justin Fields as my 4th ranked quarterback. I have him going 4th overall, with Denver trading up to Atlanta to select him. And oh man, me and Justin Fields. There are some things about Fields' game that I love, and there are some things about Justin Fields' game that I loathe. Like, he's a phenomenal athlete. Fields is an absolutely phenomenal athlete. Like, the raw ability to run and throw is most definitely there. However, the good is a very good, but the bad is a horrendous bad. And call me a pessimist if you want, but that's really what takes me out of the Justin Fields sweepstakes. Like, there are some times when he forces balls, he has terrible pocket awareness. He does not He does not make the correct read. He falls apart. When things break down, his throwing mechanics are all out of whack. He has one of the worst cases of tunnel vision that I've seen in this draft. And quite frankly, I think his natural athleticism at times bails him out. And in a league where it is very much sink or swim, I think Justin Fields has the biggest range of ceiling to floor of any quarterback in this draft. In the right situation, I think Justin Fields can be phenomenal. If he develops right, he's going to be a great quarterback in this league. But if it goes south, it'll go incredibly south.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty fair. Noel, what's your take on this?
So you mentioned I definitely agree. I think that when things fall apart, when a play falls apart and Justin Fields starts to scramble, he has no idea what he's looking for on the field anymore. The play is blown up immediately once that first route that he's looking for.
Well, that is a huge red flag for me personally.
However, if we take a look at his stats throughout his years in college, he had in 2019, he had 0, or it might be 1 or 0 regular season interceptions, which the way that I see it, when a play blows up, a lot of times what happens is the quarterback makes a desperate throw or he throws on the one route that he's staring down and it gets picked off. Justin Fields has great ball protection. He does not turn the ball over a lot. Now, I saw the IU game this year, Indiana University. I think he threw 4 picks in that game.
Yeah, he did not look good.
Was it 3 or 4?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember.
That speaks a lot, and a great Indiana defense, and especially their defensive line.
Disclaimer, Noel goes to Indiana.
So
he attends that school.
My take on Justin Fields is I think, like his natural athleticism bails him out, but I see that more as the fact that he is that athlete. He's big, he is strong, and he can run. Like, I don't see that as bailing him out. I just see that as a very positive aspect of his game.
Well, like I said, you can call me a pessimist if you want. You can most definitely look at it as the glass is half full. I mean, I would like to think I'm a glass half full kind of guy in life.
Just not in this situation.
No, not when it comes to Fields. The glass is very much half empty when it comes to Fields for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting prospect when you look at Justin Fields, and you're absolutely right that I love his playmaking ability. He's got some great talent. Can, like we said, when the play gets blown up, he's been able to make some fantastic adaptation plays, just not necessarily with his arm. He's done great to escape some situations with his feet. With his arm is when things begin to get a little suspect. And obviously we talked about the biggest question mark of that, or concerning point, would be that IU game. And I think one of the things that's going to be his biggest Achilles heel is going to be pressure. And that's going to depend on what team takes him and what kind of offensive line they have. Because you're right, his accuracy is incredible, and he's done great at protecting the ball in a whole lot of situations. But in games like that IU game, I think what really got to him was the pressure that IU brought. And one of the things is that sort of cascaded a couple of his issues that you pointed out, Drew. His mechanics started failing him. His decision-making started to look absolutely abysmal. Some of those turnovers were just plain like broken up passes that get tipped and picked off. At least one of them I remember watching and going, why in the world did you throw that? Because it just made no sense, even to me as someone who's seeing the game from a side view, not even from his point of view. So I think his decision-making and the way his mechanics break down under pressure, honestly, one of the things he kind of reminds me a little bit of some of the progression of Mitch Trubisky. When he gets put under pressure and his decision-making.
That's not helping your case for him as an elite NFL quarterback.
It's not. And that's one of the things that does concern me about him, is the way that translates into an NFL quarterback comparison right now. Is the first person that comes to mind is Trubisky. But I do think he has a lot more raw talent than Trubisky.
Tim, let me just say this. because I've done a lot of Justin Fields bashing and we have looked at a lot of the negative, I'm just going to bring some light onto the positive. I don't completely hate Fields. I think there are better options than Justin Fields. But like I said,
He's still very talented.
the bad is a very bad. But the good is a very good. Look at the game he had against Clemson. I cannot deny that he was absolutely
He went insane.
phenomenal. But that disparity,
and that was after that was during getting absolutely nailed in the ribs in that targeting shot.
Oh yeah,
I thought he was done for. But props to him for powering through that.
Yeah. So, but the disparity for me turns me away because there's no denying his talent. The talent is there. Like, I know I said it previous, Tim, you also said it, and I'm going to reiterate that the situation that Justin Fields ends up in after draft day is going to be very crucial in how his NFL career turns out.
Yeah.
So,
mine, I also add very quickly before we move on that with this whole under pressure thing, while he does definitely struggle with that, he also has an incredibly quick release. And he's able to throw those bombs in a split second, faster than anyone else in this class. That's for sure.
I would not argue that. I would argue that Wilson or even Kellen Mond has a quicker release, but that's just me. We have a lot of quarterbacks to cover, so we're going to move on to North Dakota State's Trey Lance. And Trey Lance is somebody who I actually have above Justin Fields. He's the quarterback that I have sandwiched in between Wilson and Fields. I have Lance at third because when I look at Trey Lance, I absolutely love what I see. I see, quite frankly, a limitless ceiling in the right situation because you look at the arm, he has a fantastic arm and he can throw a 60-yard bomb and then he can go out run a safety. And I understand the knock on him is, the competition that he played wasn't that great. But something that you have to understand and that really speaks volumes to me about Trey Lance, and especially up here in his head, which is a lot of what quarterbacking is that he has been able to take on the responsibility of what a pro quarterback takes on. Like, none of these quarterbacks, except for Trey Lance, has to deal with adjusting protection. They don't have complete and full control of the offense. They don't have control over hot routes. So Trey Lance, essentially for all plays on the field, has to use his mind and make the adjustments to make the offense work. And in the last full season that he played, 2019, he did very well. North Dakota State won the FCS national championship game. And Noel, you brought about the ball security of Justin Fields. Trey Lance didn't turn over one time, not once. 0 interceptions, 0 fumbles throughout the whole season, and 28 touchdowns. And he also ran for 1,000 yards on the ground. I look at Trey Lance, and quite frankly, I love what I see. I think he's the best quarterback for San Francisco at 3, and that's where I have him being taken in my mock draft. But quite frankly, I really like Trey Lance in this draft.
I mean, it's really interesting because Trey Lance is somebody that I'm just not sure about yet. Because I've seen a lot on him, and he's got a lot of potential. And Drew, I know you said you think that that Justin Fields has the biggest ratio from that ceiling to floor. I actually think that that Trey Lance has an even bigger gap here, because I think, as you said, that he has a massive ceiling if he's in the right place. But I honestly think his floor is a little, in my opinion, his floor is a little bit lower than you have of him. And
yeah, well,
the biggest reason
that's where you and I disagree, because I think his floor is higher than quarterbacks like Justin Fields.
The biggest reason why for me is I'm a little bit sketched out by his inaccuracy. That's one of the things that bothers me, and that's one of his what I would say his biggest concerns is. I feel like he's going to need a Josh Allen-esque turnaround in his throwing style, I don't want to say motion because his throwing motion is fine, but the way that he treats a game at the NFL level, I think is going to have to change drastically from his college level. And that's why I think in the wrong system, I personally think he could crash and burn worse than Justin Fields can. And the biggest comparison that I have to him, if he's in the wrong place, I could view him as an RG3 because he's very athletic. He can run the ball and he can throw the ball in the right situations. But will he be able to have that type of accuracy? And I don't necessarily knock his decision making, but will his decision making translate into that high level NFL play? That's what I'm scared about for him. And I don't know whether or not I'd be willing to take him as high as number 3 overall, just because of the amount of work that I think he's going to need to become an accurate high level NFL passer.
That's fair.
I don't have much to say on Trey Lance. I don't see many negatives about him personally. Like, I think he throws some great balls. I think he's like very good on the run. I think he's probably the best dual threat on here in this class. But with all these positives, I just think that he's so unproven right now. Like, he's played one full season in.
Well, then again, so is like Mac Jones.
Yeah, sure. But in an unproven division, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily a knock. I'm just not sure. I'm skeptical of him to see how he will actually translate to a more skillful level. If
you know what, that's honestly fair. And quite frankly, I am a lot higher on Trey Lance than most people are, but you know, we have our own opinions, and we have one major quarterback left to cover. So the next quarterback that we have to get into is Alabama's Mac Jones. And as far as his draft position goes, he has been completely up and down the board. He's been at the top of the first round. He's been at the back end of the first round. Shoot, I wouldn't be surprised if early second round happens if he falls. But there's a lot about Mac Jones that I kind of understand the hype, but at the same time, I kind of don't. Because personally, I have Mac Jones ranked 6th on my list of quarterbacks, and I have him going 24th overall to Pittsburgh. And like I said, second, third round would not surprise me. I mean, he's been shooting up the draft boards as of late, because originally it was like, oh, New England at 15, and then he climbed even higher, and then he climbed even higher. And now there are rumors about Mac Jones going number 3 to San Francisco.
I don't see it.
Well,
some people do, though.
If it happens, I think it's the wrong decision. I've heard that Shanahan.
Well, there's an argument to be made for, but I feel like there's an even bigger.
I feel like there's way more against, but
yeah, but okay. So Mac Jones is an interesting prospect because he has really solid arm strength. He is incredibly accurate. He is labeled as a non-athlete, which is really weird to me, because you look at quarterbacks like Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and Trey Lance, who have amazing raw athleticism, and then you have Mac Jones, who's kind of just like a non-athlete. And quite frankly, I see Mac Jones as more of a game manager or a distributor than a playmaker. So that could give a wide range of outcomes. Does that mean he's going to be a bad NFL quarterback? No. But I think there's 100% a defined ceiling, and I think the floor is most definitely lower than a lot of others in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly has a much different play style than a lot of the guys we've talked about here. Clearly the least athletic, like running wise. He's not going to be a factor in the run game, so you know not to count on that. But he has proven that he has incredible accuracy. So I think once again, I mean, it's true of almost all quarterbacks in this draft, other than maybe Trevor Lawrence and maybe Zach Wilson, that these guys really depend on the system they get put into. So I mean, but I do believe Mac Jones is absolutely one of those guys that, given the right situation, I think he could be a pretty decent to kind of budding high-level quarterback. But it's definitely going to be in a very specific style, and I think that team needs to be able to work that team around him. He's not going to be able to adapt to a very different play style just because of the way his game goes. But you're absolutely right. I can see him being kind of like a field general from that quarterback spot, that he's going to be able to make the throws if those throws are available and he has time to make them. But you ask him to escape the pocket, things are going to get a little interesting.
Yeah, one thing I do like about Mac Jones, and that I've seen a lot in his tape, is his ability to make throws while under pressure. And I don't mean like on the run, like escaping from pressure, but when there's guys
when
in
the pocket collapses.
Yeah, when the pocket is collapsed.
He stays poised. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he has a great pocket presence for he has great pocket presence. Now he clearly had a star-studded cast around him, especially when it comes to receivers. I mean, in this season he was without Jalen Waddle for a little bit. But when you have the Heisman winner as your number one target, it's pretty easy to make yourself look good, especially with stats.
Well, if you look at the draft board, at the top of the draft board, it is littered with Alabama Crimson Tide players.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. But I don't know. I would say that's kind of all I have to say about Mac Jones, because I'm not huge on him. I think that when it comes to today's game in the NFL, he's not mobile. If he doesn't get in a place with a good offensive line, he's going to be facing pressure a lot. And while he is good under pressure, that definitely takes a toll on you as an athlete when you're constantly getting hit. I mean, we see what happened to Joe Burrow.
We'll see what happened to Russell Wilson.
And yeah, I mean, if he doesn't have as good, he definitely won't. I shouldn't say definitely won't. We'll see what kind of situation he's in, what kind of receivers he has, but I don't know. I'm not huge on Mac Jones. Just really depends on the system, I think.
I think it also depends a decent amount on what guy does he have kind of teaching him the ropes. I think he could do really well with a veteran, solid quarterback to mentor him in his first year or two. But if he gets thrown into the reeds there, in the wrong situation, I feel like he's going to fall flat. But it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now, I said that I had Mac Jones 6th on my list of quarterbacks, so that leaves a spot in the top 5 missing. And I actually have that spot in the top 5, who I'm going to talk on briefly. Texas A&M's Kellen Mond. I actually have him squeaking into my top 5 because he was not a guy that I looked at a lot in the preliminary lookings. Words, English, I can do them. But after looking at Kellen Mond a little bit more, he is my personal sleeper for the quarterback position. And I think he can be a solid day 2 pick. And looking at Kellen Mond, he has a phenomenal arm. He has a really quick release. He throws beautiful balls. He plays in the pocket. He doesn't make many bad decisions. The one knock I have on Kellen Mond is that he can be a bit robotic at times and that he doesn't go play like backyard football. Like when things break down, he doesn't go and make plays. But again, that's something that can be fixed. And so I've come to really like Kellen Mond, and he has proven enough to be in my top 5. People sleep on Kellen Mond.
Yeah, he's another one. Like you said, I definitely didn't look into him very much when we were doing like our original mock draft. But looking at him more now, I do see a lot of the positives that you see. But I absolutely agree that I think his what you call robotic nature is a bit of a problem. The biggest issue that I have with him is his feet. He does not seem to move his feet very much at all back in the pocket unless he's really needs
and that's
to.
What I mean. He loves to play within the pocket, and that's great. The NFL loves a pocket passer, but the ability to get out and scramble and be mobile and be elusive is something that's kind of lacking in Kellen Mond's game. But that's really the only major disparity that I have against him.
Yeah, the question is, will he be able to keep up the type of consistency that he had at the college game in the NFL if he doesn't make massive strides in his improvement in his footwork and sort of his playmaking ability. He certainly has the ceiling to be able to work his way up to be a pretty decent NFL quarterback. And I see his ceiling being something similar to almost like a Dak Prescott, somebody that we didn't really necessarily think huge into coming into draft day, but really solidified his name given the right opportunity. But I also think that his ceiling or his floor can be pretty low, given the wrong situation. That's why I personally have him as 6th on my draft board. So he almost snuck into my top 5, but just not quite enough there for me to justify him scraping in the top 5.
Yeah, Noel, you got anything on Kellen Mond or?
The production there with Kellen Mond doesn't really compare to some of the other quarterbacks on this list. He definitely has more experience than some of these guys, I would say, with running an offense, and that's a good thing. But I don't know. I'm not huge on him. His completion percentages aren't great. He turns the ball over a little bit more than some of these other guys. So I'm not sure, but
yeah, and I mean that's what stats aren't everything. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, like I don't use stats in my evaluation. I'm more so on game film, but that's just me. We each have our own process and we each have our own opinions. But with that, I think that'll wrap it up. We have just ran the table and ran through all the quarterbacks in this upcoming NFL draft. We'll be sure to do other important positions, including wide receiver, cornerback, all leading up to draft day. And then the night or two before the draft, we will do our final mock draft, which will include trades. And stay tuned. That might get hectic. But yeah, until next time, we out.
Drew, don't include this part in the video.
Gee whiz, thanks, Noel. I won't.